Welcome to Results First. I'm Rory Sheppard, and today I'm joined by Traci Rogers, the Executive Director of No Boundaries International. And Traci, what we're going to talk about today is that recently we spent quite a bit of time with you and your team talking about different assessments and different learnings that we could have about your team. But before we dive into assessments, I really kind of want to have you tell us a little bit about the purpose, the people that you serve, and the impact that you make in our communities with No Boundaries.
Sure. Thank you so much. So with No Boundaries, we primarily work with people in really hard places and with a focus on human trafficking victims. And so we get the opportunity to bring that light into the darkness, to bring hope to the hopeless, and to see lives transformed. And it's not a one and done. It's a continual building relationships, helping people to see that there is hope. There are people that care. And so we do that through a variety of ways, whether it's reaching out to those that are being sexually exploited or being prostituted, or we're doing our food pantry where we're serving 300 plus families every single week in about a 2-hour window, or it's going into the schools or providing education for professionals, whatever that looks like. We want to do the hard work to help make a difference. And then one of the other things that we do is provide trauma healing or brain boot camps to help people understand how our brains were designed to work and how we can live past our trauma and not let our past invade our present to affect our future. And so we want everybody to live in that victory that Jesus has already provided.
Wow. I feel like I'm not doing enough. So you guys do phenomenal work. Thank you. So Traci, on top of that, I did want to spend a little bit of time because I know you haven't always been the executive director of No Boundaries. So give us a little bit of your journey, kind of how you got to No Boundaries and kind of what that impact has been since you have been personally engaged and involved in No Boundaries.
Oh, so I had been a children's minister for 14 years, and I took a team of 7 of us ladies to see if we could get behind this ministry in Oklahoma. And within a few hours, I knew that God was calling me to come back, quit my job, and start the Amarillo base. And so then that's basically the short of it. And I was terrified because I kind of grew up with a storybook childhood. I'm an only child. I'm adopted. I was kind of a princess. And so, those bad things happened in the movies. Yes. And then as I began to drive around and ask God to give me eyes to see, I was heartbroken. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I'll never forget, I asked a dear friend, how can I really help people in these kind of circumstances? I've never been sex trafficked. I've never been bought and sold. I don't understand. And she smiled at me and she said, but you know how to love people. And that's what they need, is genuine, unconditional love without an agenda and without condemnation. And so that's what we do.
I love it. I too probably lived that storybook childhood and lived in a protected life, right? So it's some of the things that you see others experience and go through is heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah. So let's move to assessments. So it's been 5 weeks ago, we spent a little bit of time with your team talking about different assessments. And so we did an assessments package with you where we did the WHY operating system, the WHY discovery assessment. We did DISC and motivators, and we did working genius. And so we kind of put 3 different assessments together for you and kind of then dove in and spent time talking about those with your team. And so just what were your expectations going into that conversation?
I really didn't have a whole lot of expectations, honestly. I just knew that I wanted to equip our team with any resources we could do or have to be able to better lead No Boundaries, to better serve our community. And, we're very fortunate that we have this amazing team, but the assessments for sure exceeded anything we could have imagined, because it did help open up that communication. And if you knew our team as you do, like, we communicate pretty well.
Right. Yes.
And
And pretty
even as
loudly.
are, like, there's always room for improvement. And that's what we really saw. And it's been really fun to see the afterwards.
Yeah. So one of the things that we tell teams all the time is that it's probably not something earth-shattering or new that you're going to learn about yourself. But we can put language around the things that you felt before, or you knew about each other, but you really didn't know how to put a word to it. And so one of the things that we saw as we went through the day with you and your team was that it wasn't like revelation, but it was that, oh, well, that makes so much more sense now. And now I can use these words back with you in that conversation. And so since that time, have you seen that? And has that been kind of part of your communication in and among the team?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been able to see those that have to verbalize in order for them to process. They have to verbalize it out loud. And so we realize that they're not just talking.
Right.
So that's been, we've had a lot more grace with that person. And then even for me as the leader, one of the things I love to do is tell our team, and as we're evaluating, especially at the end of the year, we want to look at, what are we doing? What can we improve? Are we still doing all the right outreaches and inreaches and all of those things? And so I always say to them, I want you to dream big. Here's a blank slate. What would you do? Dream big. Right. And they look at me like I have three heads. But through these assessments, we realize that they really don't know how to do that. It's not that they want to just, it's not that they just trust me 100%, or that they are just going to say yes to anything I put out there. I have to give them parameters.
Right.
And so like this week, even we walked through our building to see how we're using our current space. But before we left our conference room, I had printed out campus maps. And so we walked through all of the rooms on the map. And then we got up and we physically went to every room. And because they already had some ideas going that I had spoken as we were looking at the drawing, they were able to build on that.
Yeah.
To me, that seems, I'm like, why can't we just walk in this empty space?
Yeah. So I did want to talk about that, because that was one of the things that we spent not a long time on, but we did spend from a working genius perspective.
Yes.
You have a genius of invention.
Yes.
Which is not uncommon. But what we did also find was that everyone else on the team had invention as a frustration.
Yeah.
And so we all remember, over time, we had bosses along the way that said, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions.
Uh-huh.
Right. And for your team, that comment right there is a frustration, because I don't have the solution.
Right.
Right. Especially when it's blank slate. Right. That white sheet of paper can be very, very frustrating for them. And so one of the things that it kind of revealed for you, I think, was that, no, you have to be the inventor. You have to be the one that creates the new ideas. Yeah. Now, there are others on your team that have discernment, right? So you can share the idea and they can tell you, yeah, that's not quite it, but they might not be able to tell you what it is, right? To say, you're still not there, Tracy, but I don't know what to tell you to do from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's helped me to not, as the visionary, which is a good thing, I'm the visionary.
Right.
But I always wanted to include them and them to feel like they had part of creating that vision. And through this, I realized that
Yeah.
Their part is helping to execute and helping to build on that vision. And
Right.
my job is to just cast the vision
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
guilt.
Yeah. Without guilt and without going, I want you to be included,
Yeah.
because that frustrates them as opposed to fills them up. Where you're going, why wouldn't you want to be part of this conversation? For
Yes.
them, it's like, I'd rather poke my eye out.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the one of the other assessments that we did that I want to spend a little bit of time on is the why operating system, or that why discovery tool.
Yeah.
And one of the things, once we got the results back, right, we were like, well, you've got a wonderful team, right? Because everybody on your team has contribute either as their why or their what, right? And so everybody on your team contribute, is part of their DNA, part of who they are, right? And so for you, right, it's, you start with better way, right? So again, that visionary of, I need to create change, I need to drive something into a new space, right? So you are who you are, right? Regardless of what assessment we take. Traci Rogers is Traci Rogers. There is
That's right.
but then, what you bring and how we experience you is through that, that contribution, and how do you make it better for others.
Yeah.
But as you kind of look at your team and kind of go back through their DNA and how that's weaved in, that contribute is there for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of confirming for you to say, no, we've got a great team.
Yeah. I mean, well, and it even made me think about some of the people that have come on board and then just said, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. And I think, with what we do, it would be really hard if contribute wasn't your what or your why.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
because that's pretty much all we do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about giving back to the community. It's all about making things better. It's all about
Yes.
going back to that idea that you started with of, people that are in hard places, right? How do I, and it's not that overnight you're going to remove them from that hard place. It's that, but you guys are just blessed with this huge heart to say, no, we're going to stand right there with you day in and day out, week in and week out, over and over and over again, because we know life is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Yeah. So last assessment that we did, the third one that we really love, is that DISC and motivators assessment. And in that conversation, one of the things that we talk about, the people that are, and DISC stands for, dominant, influential, steadiness, and then, conscientious, or that, that C, so DIS and C. But your team, from an adapted style, everybody is on the people side. So
Yeah.
either that I or that S. And again, if you didn't need another confirmation, you still got another confirmation that you got the right team.
Right.
You're great at executing, but with people in mind, way less about, am I following the rules of the process? It's, no, we're going to change the rule of the process to meet the needs of the people that we're serving.
Yeah.
And so, just as we walked through that assessment, and we talked about when communicating with Traci, or when communicating with Caitlin, or when communicating with Kenny, do and don't. The conversation was pretty rich, but also it was like, no, these are all exactly who I am, right? And I loved watching you and Kenny go through those, because y'all were laughing out loud as you read each other's sheets of paper, right? So,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So just as you think about other nonprofits or for-profit organizations, what would you tell them when they said, did you get value from taking these assessments?
Absolutely. I think not only did we get that confirmation, but we can also look at that and go, okay, now we have language for the type person that we feel like we're missing. We know whether or not somebody's in the right position, even, as the executive director, this probably wouldn't happen. But if I was stuck in a room doing nothing but policies and procedures all day,
yeah.
First of all, everybody would know I was in the wrong position. But so it just helps with that too. It helps even with the communication. Kenny and I have laughed about those assessments, a lot over the last several weeks, because we just, with us being married for 25 years, we can also look at it and go, this would have helped us year one.
Yeah. Yeah. If we had only known, right?
Yeah.
So many of
I
them.
think there's just so much value in not only for the team, but for that visionary, whoever that is on the team, to be able to see, hey, this is why we're headed in this direction. This is why this is the team that we've got. Or, to answer some of those hard questions that we're thinking, are we leading our team in the right direction?
Right. Yeah.
Do we have the right team in place? I think these evaluations and assessments help solidify that. As the leader, helps us, and it helps us to know better, how do we lead with those different type of people, because we can't lead everybody the same. What fun would that be?
Yeah, it wouldn't be fun at all. And it would be very, very frustrating for them as well, right? If we try to lead everybody the same.
Yeah. And so it helps that leader to identify those different ways. And it helps the team to see too, that it's not a matter of favoritism, or, you're spending more time, explaining it more to them, and you're saying, just go do it. But when we realize that other person learns that way,
right,
and needs to be led that way, we have grace with our coworkers also.
Yeah. And I think that, we talk with leaders all the time about that very concept of, depending on where you are skill wise and familiarity with that task, right? It would be very frustrating if I just gave it to you and said, go do that, if you had never done it before.
Right.
And so I'm going to spend more time with you, walking you through the process. How does this work? What are the results I expect? Because it's the first time or the third time that you've done it. Now, we know that once you've done it for a few months or gone through it 8 or 10 times, you're probably going to be pretty proficient at it and only need me for questions. But I still need to go through it the first time, or it's going to be more frustrating to you if I don't, right?
Yes, for sure.
All right. Well, I could spend time all day today asking you questions about assessments, but I'm going to move into a section that we call that idea of just kind of simple insight. So 3 pretty quick questions, 30-second answers. So if we could, we don't have a clock, so it doesn't really matter. But what are you reading right now, or watching, or learning from? What podcast you're listening to that you're learning from right now that you would recommend to others?
So I just finished up The Lioness Arising, which is an older book, but it was great. Just that great reminder that, especially for women in ministry, that there is a purpose for us. There are things that we can offer that others can't. And then Living Fearlessly by Jamie Winship was fantastic at helping people to walk in that identity and claim it and know who they are and stand on that without fear. And then so I just finished those 2. And then Firepower is John Ramirez. And so that's been a really enlightening, really great book. So most of my time is spent reading books like that.
Right.
Because because what we do is definitely ministry. And so those are fantastic books, all 3 of those.
Love it. Thank you for those.
Yeah.
So and it may not be the biggest, but what is a big learning that you've had since you started running No Boundaries?
I think the number one thing is that God will always provide. and I don't have to worry about what's going to happen or where it's going to come from. He's got it. He's got a plan. I remember the first time when God gave us a building and somebody said, well, how are you going to pay for insurance? And I looked at them without hesitation and said, well, he's not going to give us a building and not provide the funds to pay for insurance. And so just being that reminder,
Right.
and then to be able to go wherever he says go, boldly and courageously, without fear, not flippantly, but
Right.
to know that he's got it and I don't have to be afraid.
Yeah, back to that fearlessly book, right? I got to go in fearlessly. I love
Yes.
that. All right. So the third question is, oftentimes, especially when I'm the visionary, I'm the leader, I'm the one that's setting direction. I've got to be very true and pure to what I think are the right things to do. And so has there been something over the last 12 months that you just were convinced of and now you've changed your mind?
Oh, lots of things. I don't know that it's necessarily the last 12 months as much as just a growing process over the last 10 years of just recognizing that as a visionary, if we try something and I miss it, it's not a sign that I failed. We just need to try again.
Right.
And we just keep going and keep learning from every little hill that we go over. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've thought, I thought I had to do it perfect. I had to do it with excellence, and I still want to do it with excellence, but excellence doesn't mean perfection.
Wow.
And so as long as I can look at it and go, whoa, that was a terrible idea. And we do it better next time,
Yeah.
And so I think that is the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 10 years, even.
Well, Traci, thank you so much. I've got it down at the bottom of the screen. There is a little bit of information about how to get in contact with you, whether it's going to your website. There is a link there just for giving, so that if you want to participate in the ministry of No Boundaries International, Facebook page. But are there other ways that we can engage, interact, and be part of the No Boundaries International ministry?
Absolutely. So we have a great prayer team that we send out text messages, and we know that prayer is critical for what we do. We always need volunteers. And so even myself as the executive director, none of us are paid. We're all 100% volunteer missionary staff. And so we always need people with that. And then just people that will rally around us and say, go team, go.
I love that. Love that. So I will, as we close, then I will say, go team, go.
Thank you.
You guys are phenomenal. I know that you do great work. And the impact that you make one life at a time is what makes a difference. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Traci Rogers, No Boundaries International. Thank you.